Okay, so there's an inherently bad thing about seeing a prequel about a character who we've all have seen the end of. We're talking about Han Solo. There's one glaringly obvious thing that happens throughout this whole movie, and that is that Han Solo will get himself into a life and death situation, or at least one that you might think he might get injured, he might get hurt. Those are the same things. Regardless, when you're seeing these scenes in this movie, you really don't care. Normally, if it were any other character, you would think to yourself, what's gonna happen to him? Oh, wait a minute. Nah, he dies in Force Awakens. We've seen him live up until that point. So seeing anything with him being in any sort of trouble doesn't compute. So if you can actually suspend disbelief and actually tell yourself that Han Solo is actually in any shred of trouble throughout this entire movie, then you might be able to enjoy it just a little. So that is why I have issues with prequels. A lot of the times, the directors, the writers, it seems like nobody goes back and looks at the original material, understands it, and incorporates a cohesive timeline to make sense out of anything that's happening. By the way, if you didn't know already, this is going to be filled with major spoilers. So let's just talk about it. From cinematic Star Wars fan to another cinematic Star Wars fan. We're going to start with the issues that currently plague Disney, Star Wars, and the fans. What we have here is failure to communicate. We have someone at the very top that's making these really odd decisions about how to go forward with the story of Star Wars. Incidentally, they keep making movies about things that are in the past, which in turn ruin the cinematic Star Wars movies further. So what do I mean by that? We now have answers to questions to things nobody asked about. How he got his gun, how Han Solo got the last name Solo, how he met Chewie, how the front of the Millennium Falcon got knocked off like a Lego piece. And I ask you, did anyone really care about those things? Part of watching a movie is taking what you've seen and filtering it through the lens of how you see things. Now there's no mystery. Now when we watch the original trilogy, we will see things that have explanations to them that needed none in the first place. Why do we need a restructuring of how the Empire works? Do they not see that there are 8 movies now that now need to at least mention this other thing? That's where Star Wars always fails. Because when they put Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi, now somebody has to come up with a dumb explanation about why he's a young Force ghost. And I understand that there's a lot of people out there that grew up with the prequels and love them more than the original trilogy. And I understand that there's a lot of people that like the extended universe. But the problem with incorporating so many sources and having so many different ranges of fans is that you get lost in the sauce. You have people that enjoy movies, so they enjoy only the cinematic movies, like myself. Then you got what I would say is the die-hard Star Wars fans that enjoy all things Star Wars and actually liked Rogue One because it mentioned almost everything, from things from the books to things from the CG series, and I get that. But as for me, it just looks like they're digging the hole deeper. They keep trying to sell us the mythology of these characters when we had already made it up in our minds. We don't need explanations for things that have been around for over 20 years. Let's go to DC for a minute. Remember that awful movie, Man of Steel? Remember how the entire movie was Clark Kent learning? There were scenarios, there was things that were happening in his early life, his adult life, that taught him to be the man that he was gonna be. Remember that? But remember how they screwed it up at the very end? This movie didn't really screw that up. If your goal is to show how someone will become, they did a good job. But if your goal was to show a character what to stop doing, the movie screwed it up. Is it not obvious to everyone that if you live within the confines of crime and the movie shows you that you're a good person, that you should get out of the life of crime? But at the end of the movie, he goes right back into the life of crime. But if we're trying to achieve the goal of Han Solo being Han Solo from A New Hope, then this movie did a good job. Because he's clumsy, he doesn't really think things through, he does improvise. For as much as the movie was telling him to just fall in line, he, wait for it, rebels. Now we can dive to the negative, to the deepest, darkest sea of negativity. Where do we want to start? Do we want to go to the awful L3 character? Very unstable, very much for equal rights for droid kind across the galaxy. And I get that, they're not treated good. I'm also not the type of person that follows all this social justice warrior dialogue amongst the Star Wars films. I just don't get it. Ever since Empire Strikes Back, or rather before Empire Strikes Back, people have been talking about this. During A New Hope, as it ushered in fans, they said, "Where are the other races?" And this is how you got Cloud City. This dialogue has been going on for so long, for longer than you think. In the prequels, George Lucas politicized them by making a slight commentary about America's president, even using lines of dialogue that existed in real life speeches from political events, putting them into the movies to make correlation between the Sith and the Republican Party of the United States at the time. And even George Lucas himself has said that the original trilogy was supposed to be a political battleground that children could understand. So with L337, there's nothing new there, but that doesn't stop her from being a horrible character that did more harm to the mission than good. And even though that was actually one of the scenes that took me by surprise, where L3 actually gets ripped apart, shot, Lando goes after her, and then Han goes after Lando, and then Chewie goes after all of them, it still wasn't enough to redeem how dumb and idiotic the character was. Because it was her fault that they were put in that shootout to begin with. So yeah, if you're a fan of the cinematic Star Wars original trilogy, save yourself the grief. If you're a fan of Rogue One, you'll probably like this movie. If you're a fan of everything Star Wars, you might find yourself somewhere in the middle. And if you're a fan of the prequels, you will probably love this movie because there'll be more shitty prequel movies to add on to this prequel movie. That means we get more Obi-Wan. So let's see. What can we add to Obi-Wan? What can we add? Okay, let's see. What about, let's pick any little thing. Okay, so in A New Hope, they make mention that Obi-Wan used to come around the moisture farms where Luke was. So let's have a scene where Obi-Wan visits Luke, and Luke is young, and we're dealing with the shitty prequel. So let's add Anakin. Let's add maybe, well, I don't know, maybe we can add Okay, well, Jabba the Hutt is on Tatooine, right? And Obi-Wan has gone to Mos Eisley, so maybe they've crossed paths before. Maybe Obi-Wan has had to do a job to survive on Tatooine for Jabba the Hutt, so let's somehow, some way get Han Solo in the background of that, and let's definitely have Darth Maul in the movie to be an antagonist to Obi-Wan. And since we're dealing with Jabba the Hutt, let's add a lot of gangster backstory shit to Jabba the Hutt. Let's have some sort of how about Obi-Wan frees some female slaves out of Jabba's palace, or maybe there was two Jabbas still, and let's do that. Let's have the Hutts. I don't know. I'm not thinking. I don't have the stupid brain of these Star Wars executives. Like we need to take tinier things. Like how did he? All right. I'm forgetting about Boba Fett and Greedo. Right. So in A New Hope, Greedo was a throwaway character just to be shot in a bar. But let's give him some backstory. Let's show how Han and Greedo met. Let's show that they actually had a friendship. And let's see how Boba Fett got his armor dented and where he acquired his first jetpack. Now I'm thinking like them. Now I understand. I have to ask the questions that people don't want answered. And then I will create a rush job movie and give it to you in 2 years' time. I guess that's it. So if you disagree with me, please, I just want you to add what you are a fan of. Do you like the prequels? Do you like and by prequels I mean, Anakin and Obi-Wan. Do you like A Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith? Do you like the prequels? Or do you like everything Star Wars? Have you been in it since the books and the Christmas special and everything else? Or are you just a fan of the trilogy? Just give me everything you have. Give me all the hate and everything that you didn't like about what I said. If you agree, you can agree, but I would still like to know which one of the movies you're a fan of. And also, please let me know what you think about social justice dialogue in Star Wars. Is it for the good? Is it for the bad? And also, how long until these movies are dead to us? How long before Star Wars is just another franchise like Saw or Marvel movies where we skip one here like Ant-Man and then we watch something like Doctor Strange, or we don't watch Iron Man 3. Do you understand what I'm saying? How long before we just get flat out bored of it and start picking which ones we watch? Thank you for following me on SoundCloud and YouTube, and we will discuss movies very soon. I'll see you next time.